Guys, I have a confession to make. It's pretty embarrassing, but I'm a 33-year-old man. Well, soon to be 34. My birthday is really close. If any of you all want to send me an early birthday gift, you could do so via Cash App. But I'm a 33, soon to be 34-year-old man. And for the life of me, I cannot sleep with the closet door open or cracked. Something about it just does not sit right with my spirit and my soul, and every fiber of my being needs the closet door fully closed in order for me to feel safe when I go to sleep, because otherwise I feel like I'm being watched, as if there's a dark entity in the closet just peering out at me. And I know that I'm a little too old for this, but I don't think I'll ever change. Are any of you all the same? Maybe it's just something that's been pre-programmed since I was a kid, but I need the closet doors closed, man. Now, some of you may feel the same way I feel, or at the very least, a lot of you guys have kids or grandkids, and you've dealt with the boogeyman is in the closet. There's a monster under my bed. You all have dealt with that, or you've been a kid at one point yourself, and you experienced that feeling of thinking that something was there watching you, something was there under the bed, something's in the closet. Well, sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, there is a monster under the bed. Sometimes there is a monster in the closet. In fact, a babysitter in Kansas, she was recently babysitting. Everything was going hunky-dory. She was making the little sandwiches, cutting off the crust, doing everything a good babysitter should do. And then came bedtime. Now, bedtime can be kind of difficult for babysitters because it's hard enough to put a kid to bed, let alone put a kid to bed that's not your own kid, right? But the babysitter was a good babysitter. She knew all of the tactics. And the kid that she was babysitting, when it was time for bed, the kid kept complaining that there was a monster in the room. The kid was scared. The kid could not go to sleep. The kid swore up and down that there was a monster in their room. Now, the babysitter, she's dealt with this before, so she knows how to reassure a kid that everything's okay, everything is safe. So she goes in the kid's room. She opens the closet door. See? No one's in here. Nothing's in here. Everything's fine. You're totally safe. But the kid's in bed. The kid has the covers pulled up to her nose. She's kind of scared. And she says, well, what about under the bed? Then the babysitter is like, nothing in the closet. There's nothing under the bed. But to reassure the kid, as a good babysitter would, or as a good parent would, the babysitter gets on her hands and knees. She lifts the blankets up to show the kid that there's nothing under the bed. But there was something under the bed. There was a full-grown man under the bed. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not a horror movie. This is not story time. This is a real story that just took place in Kansas. By the way, if you're in Kansas, beware, because there is a satanic group that is going ham in Kansas right now. They recently, just yesterday, held a black mass ceremony at the state capitol. They've been vandalizing local churches. They even stole the communion bread from a local Catholic church so they could use it in their black mass little event that they were having at the Capitol. So there's a lot of weird stuff going on in Kansas. But anyway, back to the story at hand. This babysitter is doing what a babysitter is supposed to do. And she's trying to reassure the kid that everything's okay. There's no monster in your room. But it turns out there is a monster under the bed. Now, when the babysitter discovers this, the guy comes out from under the bed, and there's a physical altercation. The kid is thrown to the floor during the altercation. I think there's a few minor injuries. No one seriously hurt. The guy takes off running and he is eventually caught and found, luckily, and now he's behind bars. But before I go any further into this story or my thoughts about this story, let's go ahead and roll this news clip. Let's hear it on the news, and then I'll be right back with more thoughts.
If you have ever had to care for little kids, you've probably spent a lot of time on your knees, cleaning up messes, looking for the toys, or looking for clothes, or looking for food, or just praying. And yes, you have probably done that check under the bed for monsters. My question to you now is, have you ever found one? Did you? Did you ever find a monster lurking under a child's bed, just waiting for you to turn off the light and go away so that it can do some monstrous deed? Because a babysitter in Kansas did. She literally found a monster under the child's bed just the other night. She peeked under the bed just to ease the fears of the little kid that she had just tucked in, and she came face to face with Martin Villalobos Jr. Police say that Martin is 27 years old and that he once lived in that very home. He and the babysitter got into a physical struggle, and the terrified child was actually knocked to the ground in that struggle. Police say then he took off. He escaped, but he was caught the next day after a foot chase. His relationship, if any, to the home's current residents is unclear tonight, but there is a court order for him to stay away from that home. It was already in force, and apparently just days earlier, he had been arrested for violating it both in January and in February. Now, he was able to post bond on those violations, but this time is not going to be so easy because police are now requesting a new batch of charges against him, including aggravated burglary, aggravated battery, aggravated kidnapping, and child endangerment. And at this time, bond for him is set at $500,000. And whether he can post that one or not, I am guessing a whole lot of sleepless nights might be in Mr. Villalobos' future. Can't imagine what it will be like for that child and that babysitter, wondering if there's something under the bed every time they go to bed for the rest of their lives.
And to think, people say that monsters aren't real. Monsters are just fairy tales. They're a work of fiction. Ladies and gentlemen, monsters are real. Monsters are very real. They're just not called monsters. They're called humans. And as we all know, humans exist. There's some good ones, but there's some monsters as well. Just like this man that was found underneath that child's bed. I think the last thing I would expect, just imagine you're a parent or you're a babysitter. It's even scarier, I think, if you're a babysitter, because you already kind of feel like you don't have full control over the situation. It's not your kid. It's not your house. And, you're trying to reassure the kid everything's okay. And then you lift up the sheets and there's like an illegal immigrant hiding under the bed. Like, what in the hell is going on here? It's not funny. It's scary, but I laugh because it's the only thing I can do. But, I always told myself, even from a young age, I've watched a lot of horror movies, and in the horror movies, there's always a kid that notices things, right? Even when the adults don't notice, even when the adults don't see the spirits, it's always the kids that are the most affected. And I always told myself, when I have kids, I'm going to believe them. If my kid says he's talking to some imaginary friend that's telling him to do things, I'm going to be worried. Motherfucker, you're possessed. Okay, that's what's happening here. You know what I mean? Like if my kid comes to me, oh, my imaginary friend told me to do this. Oh, hell, no. What? You know what I mean? I don't trust imaginary friends, obviously. But like I said, I just always told myself after watching all of these horror movies, you guys have seen some of the same type of movies, that I'm going to believe my kid. If my kid says they see something weird or something like that, instead of dismissing them like, oh, that's childish, oh, wow, I'm going to actually entertain them. Because maybe they're telling the truth. Maybe there's something to it. I think often when kids have these fears, there's something to those fears. Obviously, usually there's not a boogeyman in the closet, but there's something that they're scared of. There's something that's bothering them. And in this case, there literally was like a monster under this kid's bed. Ah, man, it's just mind-boggling thinking about getting caught in that type of situation. Imagine being the kid. What type of interactions were there? When the babysitter was up front talking to her boyfriend as you're laying in bed trying to go to sleep, was the guy under your bed trying to talk to you? It's some creepy stuff. But as I was saying, I always told myself, hey, when I have kids, if they come at me with some weird stuff like this, I'm going to entertain it, at least at first, until I get to the bottom of what's going on. So often kids are dismissed, but their concerns and their fears come from somewhere. And like I said, in this case, it came from a monster under the bed. Now, there's obviously more to this story, though. They haven't released much information. In fact, they were really hesitant to release the guy's name and picture who actually did this for obvious reasons. But they haven't released much details. But obviously, there's a connection between this guy and that home. And honestly, it feels like some weird Michael Myers type Halloween movie type ish. Like, what do you mean he once lived there? And he's barred from going back, but he keeps going back, and now he's underneath a kid's bed? Like, what connection does this weirdo have with that home? What type of trauma did he go through in that home? What type of ties does he have to this home to where he can't stay away, right? There's obviously some type of connection there, and we're not getting the full story. Now, as far as I know, this guy is a total stranger that did not know the babysitter and did not know the kid. But then again, I could be wrong because they have not given us the full details. All we know is he used to live in that home. He was barred from going around that home, yet he was found inside that home and under a kid's bed. So whatever that connection is between him and that home, it must be strong. It must be some weird, evil, spiritual type ish going on, or some crazy stuff going on. I would like to know more. I hate when we have a story like this one and the details are so vague. Like, this is an interesting story. This is something you can make a movie out of. Give us the full details here. They'll give us the full details about stories that no one cares about. But something like this, it's always like, oh, the details are kind of under wraps and mysterious. No. Let us know what the heck is going on. Obviously, y'all know the connection this guy has with the home. There's a reason why he was banned, from going there. There's more to this story that we don't know yet. Hopefully, I could find out what that stuff is. But regardless if I do or not, I think it's safe to say that all of us are checking underneath the bed before we go to sleep tonight. But with that being said, let me know your thoughts about all of this down in the comments below. While you're down there, hit that thumbs up, hit that subscribe, ring that notification bell. And like I said, be sure to look under your bed.